ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second Astro-Yogi Super-Gossip. Here are the topics we got for you today. We're going to talk about global warming and travel. That's Waylon's thing. And I'm going to talk to you about the weather and how it relates to astrology, but maybe not in the way you're thinking. Then we're going to break it down into kind of yogi-related and astro-related current events, gossipable. So we're going to talk about the commodification of yoga. We're going to talk about the trend of returning to classical astro. We're going to talk about the absence of men in some yoga circles. And finally, we're going to talk about old-fashioned superstition versus New Age magic. All right, well, I'll take it away. What do you want to talk about? Global warming.
Well, this is the buzz topic of the modern age, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it a lot. And there's always two sides to every story. I notice a lot from my friends and stuff around. There's a lot of, oh my gosh. There's a lot of people posting things about you shouldn't fly, you shouldn't take your leisure and go on vacations around the world because every time you make a flight or anything of the sort, it like erases a certain amount of the ice. And so there's a lot of guilt put on everybody about everything nowadays. Like, you shouldn't consume this, you shouldn't consume that, you shouldn't take bananas because you're importing food, all these things. So I just wanted to kind of decompress all of it and talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got about 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Wow. Impossible.
Yeah, but we got to be fast paced, right?
So for me, my gosh. For me, it feels like
mode.
It feels like there's two sides, and I think there's a lot of it's blown out of proportion in a lot of ways. Because for sure, the environment is changing naturally. They say the sun also goes through its changes. In the history of the world, we've had mass extinctions, we've had all these things happen, and of course now we are contributing a lot to the degradation. I mean, I've traveled all around the world. And I've seen the coral reefs getting destroyed, and I've seen, ecosystems getting destroyed. Also, I see mass development happening. And I always just wonder, like, can we do anything? Really? Because even if I don't buy that plane ticket, I've been on planes where it's just like me and 50 people. There's many empty seats. And they keep on increasing. And then you look at China and India, they're getting more money. They're getting more middle class. They want to travel the world. So it doesn't look like there's going to be any end to the flights.
So are you saying it's hopeless and we might as well just burn the world?
No, of course not. Of course not. That's never the right answer, right? We have to be a little bit like optimistic about it. But like, what do you think?
Well, this reminds me of when I first became a vegetarian and used to argue with people about it a lot. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people would say it doesn't make any difference what I eat or what you eat.
Right.
But it does.
For sure. So
it does make a difference whether or not you keep doing stuff that contributes to the world getting screwed up. Yeah. But I think you have to put it in perspective of what you're able to do as a human being and an individual. Yeah. You can't just divorce yourself from the modern world and
Yeah, like the only real solution to not make any impact is to grow your own food, live in the forest, and be self-sustainable, which is it's very, very, very hard.
Yeah. And see, this is the thing too, like this is the law of ahimsa, or the concept of ahimsa is not that you can negate your violence.
Right.
Because whether it's environmental violence or other kind of violence, it's still ahimsa, right?
Right.
So it's not that the Jains really took it to the thought of let's try to erase it entirely.
Right. They wear masks, they sweep the ground.
But they can't even, right? You're always going to be killing bacteria and everything just to digest your food. So ahimsa's principle isn't let's be perfect. No. But ahimsa's principle is do the best that you can.
Right. Like have the goal and just strive for it. Yeah. Of course, we're human beings and we're going to do it. But yeah, so I wonder about this. And I also know that there's a lot of misinformation about everything. And as bad as things are, we have to always look on the bright side.
So you think Trump is right?
Trump?
Yeah.
I don't think that he's right or he's wrong. I think that somewhere in the middle is the truth about everything, you know? Maybe he's an extreme outlier.
Yeah.
But for sure, there's a middle ground we have to take.
Yeah, good.
Take for it, right? I mean, I think that's the right approach. At least, as striving yogis, that's what we should be doing, right?
Yes. All right, so now let's segue to the weather.
The weather, is very connected.
Right?
Yeah.
We both are living here in Kyushu in Japan. We got this. So I went to the batting cage like 2 days ago with my son.
Nice. How'd you do?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
And he's getting a lot better.
How fast are the pitches?
120 kilometers. So that was the only sport I ever played when I was a kid.
Oh, wow. Oh, good.
All right, so, I'm at the batting cage, and I always have a conversation with the guy who's working there.
Yeah.
The guy's petrified. He's like, it's going to flood, and he's showing me the stuff on the TV. So then I get a little scared about it. I come home telling everybody, hey, it's going to flood. It's going to be and this happens all the time, right?
Right.
There's going to be some kind of horrible weather. And then what happens? Nothing. Right? Like literally, there was actually zero rain. Like yesterday, the streets were dry.
Yeah.
But we were supposed to be flooded.
My side, 1 hour away, there was rain all day.
Yeah.
It was pretty heavy rain.
Okay, so this is what I want to talk about and how this relates to astrology.
Yeah, right.
Because first of all, the science of predicting the weather is called meteorology.
Right.
For a reason, because it developed out of astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of interpreting deep space, they would interpret atmospheric space, so meteors.
Yeah.
Right? And so actually a lot of the same success rate, and everything is really similar actually.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to say is you people shouldn't jump on astrologers' necks to try to be more accurate than the weathermen.
Mm-hmm.
Because the weathermen have tons of money to fund them so that they can do their science and research, tons of computers,
sophisticated equipment,
all kinds of stuff that we do not have.
No.
Right? And they still get it wrong. But the way that they get it wrong is so interesting. It's not wrong. It's not entirely wrong. It's just never exactly perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
It did rain someplace really hard.
Right.
And it rained more by him, but I was someplace else and I didn't notice it because it's so sophisticated.
Yeah. I'm also beside the ocean, so that's why.
More.
Yeah.
So these things that we're dealing with, whether you're dealing with meteorology or astrology, the things that we're dealing with the systems are so complex and sophisticated to actually get it right that on this house, on this day, it's going to be this much rain is actually impossible. The same way for me to tell you, you're going to get married on this day to this person. It's actually impossible.
Of course.
Except for some crazy luck.
Yeah.
Right. But the weather is still useful.
Absolutely.
It's still really useful. You read it, you say, well, it's going to rain someplace. It's not going to be hot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way. Readings from an astrology chart or from an astrologer are still super useful, even though they can't tell you what color your underwear is today.
Yeah. I think that this same consciousness exists in almost everything. People expect their governments to do everything for them, right? And they don't actually understand how complicated everybody's life is to organize. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's somehow connected to our it's an authority thing. We feel like because people have a position that we can dump all of our reliance on them. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the guru disease too.
It is a guru. Yeah. This is a heavy thing too.
Whether you're the disciple or the guru, it sucks for both.
It does. Yeah. It does. Unless the guru is proper. A proper guru will say.
But if you're a proper guru, but not proper sisha, it still does not work. So the student should know how to relate with the guru.
Right.
Not expect unrealistic things or impossible things.
Yeah. I think, for example, my teacher or my guru, he always taught me that the guru is inside. Guru is inside. Mm-hmm. So, of course, you need to have some respect for your teachers, your forefathers. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, So we should always respect that. But we always got to know that, the most sophisticated piece of technology is actually our own body, right?
Nice, I like that. Yeah, okay, here's the segue.
Okay.
So we're segueing into standing on the shoulders of giants. Right? Yoga is some serious stuff. It comes from Shiva. Mm. Right? Or you may say it comes from Brahma and Vishnu.
Or from Krishna or whatever.
Shiva, right? Yeah. So anyway, it doesn't come from 7-Eleven. It comes from somebody really, really important.
Right.
But these days, they open up a 24-hour Joy Fitness.
Right.
And they have the girl up front with her butt up in the air,
right,
lifting a dumbbell backwards.
Yeah.
And it's yoga.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this? You call it the commodification of yoga.
Commodification. Well, I mean, it's not just of yoga. Actually, there's a commodification of everything happening. And it probably happens in this astrological world as well. Is that because we have a huge marketplace in the world now. It's capitalism is kind of the overriding principle. Even in China, which is supposed to be a communist, super haven, they're selling off everything like crazy. So what do we do about this? You know, I mean, we can't really fight it. If you try to fight it, like I've tried to fight it, it doesn't work. If you fight so hard against the commodification of something, you eventually can't make money to eat because you become so high principled, but so low in your material, you know, awareness.
Yeah.
So again, it's the balance. What do we do about quantification of yoga? Well, I think that's why it's important. Like you talked about the Shisha, like Diksha tradition. That's the reason why the guru disciple tradition was in there, I think. Maybe it's like all systems kind of gotten twisted, but I think it was in there for you to understand where the source is coming from. Understand that you're not the source. Understand that there's nothing new under the sun, right? You know, everything has just kind of been recycled over and over. And if you're able to look at the world, you can see we had ancient civilizations before. There's sunken cities in the world, and for sure we found sophisticated computer-like machines like hidden in the in the ocean. You know, so you know, what can we do about it? Just try to work with the world as best we can and stay true to the traditions, right? As best you can.
Take advantage of it or work with it.
And
show them the source of it.
Show the source of it.
Divorce yourself from
it. And understand that, like for me, I've been teaching for 20 years. And for me, always I know that I've always felt inadequate to fit into that position as a yoga teacher. Because when you have the idea of enlightenment or samadhi or, you know, the highest forms of bhakti and stuff, these are like high ideals that how can anybody reach, really? But all we can do is just do our best with what we have. Yeah. And work with our environment and with the people around us. Try not to get caught up in what other people are doing too much. Focus on your own study, your own practice, and do what you have to do to live. But always, you know, refer. I think that's why also anytime you read like a yoga book or something, the first thing is always like, I thank my guru, I thank this, is to immediately say, no matter what I've done, no matter how great I am, actually, it's all because of this.
Here's the core, here's the root, here's
where
it's coming from.
Right.
Yeah. You know, that is really the way I feel. I like to see the yoga at Joy Fit because it's more opportunities for people just to hear the word yoga. And then, but I noticed that for things that are important and real and beyond me, I like when it gets more popular. But little things like little quirks about how I like to wear my shorts or something. Like when I was a kid, I started wearing Bermuda shorts. Yeah. And then everybody started wearing them. And it's bothered me. So like for little things, like with like my own personal fashion or something, I just want you guys to stay away from me. I want to do my own thing. Yeah. But for big things like yoga, astrology, knowledge of the Vedas, the more the merrier. And in however form you get exposed to it,
it's true. I'm happy. It's true. I think we talked a bit about that last time. And like I said before, it's if you do something connected to it, you know, the little root is going to feed you. And then that's just going to grow more and more. Okay,
so you also mentioned maybe this happens in astrology too, and I was thinking, how does this happen in astrology? Commodification. And there's a topic that people asked me to talk about, asked us to talk about on my Facebook thing, right? Which was memes and selfies.
Memes and selfies, yeah.
So you know, might be surprised at my opinion on this.
Have you ever taken a selfie?
Of course.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I never have.
Usually for my wife, I just send her a selfie of where I am.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And sometimes I post it on whatever. Yeah. Sometimes I'll even go like this. Yeah, actually, I think they'll be surprised. I think memes and especially selfies and all that stuff is fine if it's consistent with what you're actually doing. So for example, Claire Nakti. Have you ever heard Claire Nakti?
Claire Nakti.
She's kind of an outside the astrology circle, you might not have heard of her. But inside the astrology circle, she's like one of these women that's off on her own, not connected with other organizations, and just teaches women how to be women, according to her. So she's posting pictures of her ass and cleavage, and that's totally makes sense because that's what she's doing. Right. She's teaching people women how to be powerful, confident about how they, feel and look and how to express themselves. So you can't slight that. Right. Or you have other people like David Palmer, the Leo King. Everybody knows. You probably know the Leo King.
I heard because of you.
Yeah. So like
I saw an interview.
He's a charismatic guy.
Yeah.
Good-looking guy. He's always often posting pictures of his own face. But that is true to who he is because he's helped guiding people as a guru figure, and part of the reason why the people have faith in him is because of that charisma. Right. So I don't think it's really bad. to do funny jokes with memes and to take
no.
selfies and to be good looking or whatever. It's great if it's true to what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to be somebody else,
right.
then
Authenticity is felt no matter what. And always there's going to be haters, right?
Yeah, tell me.
Everything you do, even if what you're doing is great. You know, like recently there was an interview with the Dalai Lama, and everybody was freaking out because he said something that if the Dalai Lama comes back as a woman, she better be attractive. Because if she's not attractive, no one's going to listen to the things. And so all of the, the way America is nowadays, everybody's like, oh my God, we used to think that he was great, but actually he's just,
Actually, he's realistic.
It is realistic because, like, at the same time, they're like, oh, we shouldn't be judging by those things. But look at the celebrity culture. Look at all of these things. Even in the street, if someone's not attractive, automatically you're not going to be as, like, open, or you might walk by them.
Yeah, for sure.
The homeless guy in the street, he's dirty, he's whatever.
For sure.
Like, just don't even look at him.
If you want to just do an experiment with that, just dress up nice one day, especially if you're a woman. Dress up nice, go into a store and ask for some help. Or dress like a freaking bum and go into a store and ask for some help.
Right.
And then see what life is like when you're not so good looking.
And yes, of course, like, we want to be able to value everybody, no matter who they are or what they look like. But naturally, there is something that's there, right? Like, naturally, people like the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
But if, like, your little 5-year-old boy draws a crazy picture, and it's ugly, you're not going to put it up in the Louvre and say, look at this, it's beautiful, even if you think it's beautiful. Yeah. So there is definitely a subjective thing to beauty, but there also is some kind of universal thing that people recognize.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Well, this is also interesting. It relates to the global warming thing. I forgot how though. I forgot how it skipped my mind. This happens to me sometimes, so.
I think it happens to all people.
All right, how about this? A new topic. Yeah. No. Now I remember what it was.
Okay.
I think with the airplanes and the global warming and everything, we're saying you have to live in this world in a progressive way, you have to be able to have ideals and be practical at the same time.
Right.
And not sacrifice one for the other.
Right.
So you live as much according to your ideal as you can. So the same thing. The valid ideal is that people shouldn't be judged on criteria that's irrelevant to what you're judging. So, for example, if the Dalai Lama is teaching about Buddhism, nobody should give a flying fuck what this woman looks like.
It's true.
Right?
It's true.
So that's the ideal, and that's a perfectly valid ideal. But you have to also realize that you live in the practical world.
Right, you do.
So without sacrificing your ideal for the practical world, but you also shouldn't sacrifice the practicality of how to be effective for the ideal. And that pertains to selfies and memes and everything. This pertains to everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, next topic.
Yeah.
Somebody wanted me to talk about Hellenistic Smarties. And you didn't even know what it was.
Well, I know what Hellenism is.
Yeah.
And I know I thought when you said Smarties, it was like the candy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
And related to like things like people are using whole sign house systems again and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely a trend return to classical astrology. And if you want to know my thoughts on it, thank the gods.
You've come to the right place.
Because this is where this stuff comes from.
Right.
And modern people are really good with silicon and computer technology and electronic technologies. That's what modern people are good at. We are not good at mysticism. No matter how much you think that so-and-so is really mystical, compared to the people of 5,000, 10,000 years ago, these people are complete schmucks.
Yeah.
Right? So, because of the way that we just live and grow up, we just, the brain cells don't get wired in the right way for it.
I think that's connected to the fact that back then, there was not much to do.
Yeah.
So they had more time to just sit.
Right.
And more time to actually like let their consciousness go into things.
Right.
Whereas nowadays we're heavily distracted. This, that, heavy schedules.
What guna is that?
Which guna is Rajasic.
That's Rajaguna. Is Rajaguna going to give you any knowledge?
Yeah. Well, it'll give you some knowledge.
It'll give you some knowledge, but it doesn't give you clear knowledge. Sattva Guna gives you clear knowledge.
Right.
So the people who grew up in a more sattvic environment, they have better access to mysticism. So if people are returning to older ways of doing astrology, I raise my cup to you.
Right.
Yeah. So the Hellenistic Smarties are also good guys. I'm on their side.
Right.
The Hellenistic Smarties like Chris Brennan.
Yeah.
Chris Brennan, what a great, geeky, awesome person. We need more people like this. People that actually study, are See, you have on one hand Leo Kings and Claire Naktis who are charismatic and all that, and then you have like Chris Brennan's,
Yeah.
Smartiepants type of
Right,
people.
Yeah.
You need them all.
Yeah.
You need them all, and they all need to work together to
Right.
make the soup of what works. But what somebody like Chris is doing with that book, Hellenistic Astrology, and the results of that book, is giving some really, really good content for the charismatic and intuitive people to work with.
Right.
So returning to whole sign house systems, returning to 7 planets. I hope you guys could even go that far, you know, returning to 7 planets, returning to all the systems that the ancient people who developed astrology thought of. It's good stuff.
Yeah. When I think about ancient astrology, like I knew that there were whole classes of people that would just stay up all night and they would just look at the stars. You know, like in ancient Egypt, I think they were actually called the Jedi, the DJ,
Really?
the protectors of like the star knowledge, and they would stay up all night long, and they would just look at the stars, and that's how they would track the movements and things like this. So these people are very, you know, have this very special kind of person.
Yeah.
Maybe some of these late night people that stay up all night, that's what they're really supposed to be doing, is sitting up and looking.
Yeah. We did that when we went to Arizona. Last time I went and hung out with other astrologers, we did that. And we went out in the desert at night. But if you go down the road from us, here in Japan, there's a place called... I forget the name of the place.
Anyway.
It's an ancient ruin.
Oh, yeah.
Of one of the old Japanese cities. And they've reconstructed some of it. And one of the things that struck me the most was the mystic. Every village had a mystic. But they had reconstructed the mystic's living quarters. It was right in the middle of the town, but no one was allowed to go near it. You know?
That's just like the shaman and like the South American things and stuff too.
So the way that they would keep themselves isolated, and they had a completely different schedule from everybody else. It's really, really important to being able to come up with some amazing stuff like this, like astrology, which we don't do these days.
Yeah, someone who's totally different than everyone else. Yeah.
All right, I got another topic for you.
Okay.
And we're coming to the end. We have 2 more topics left. What's up with no men? Dansei nashi. There's no men in yoga. I
always think about this one, because ancient yoga, especially like the hatha yogas and stuff like this, it was all men. There was no woman allowed to do it before. And then it's true, like in the old ancient times, like only like the really, you know, the naked sadhu kind of types, these kind of weird guys, they went out in the jungle and they just developed these, you know, these physical practices, these hatha yogis. And now it's like the flip opposite. It's like mostly a woman. Now it's different. Like for example, in Canada and the US, like I've taught all around the world. I get like 50% in all of the yoga classes I teach and what I see. I mean, China is, and Japan, Asia is a little bit different. Japan is an extreme, it's like mostly women, about 99% probably. And of course it has to do with the culture, the original culture. And I don't know what it is about it. I think it has to do with the way that it's marketed, the images they're putting out. When you're advertising yoga and you just put out like, you know, scantily clad women and like, or whatever, just fitness things or whatever, always women in front of fitness things like this. Maybe it gives the guys an impression that this is not for me, actually. This is for that woman or these women. But in fact, it's actually good for everybody to do. It's going to take time for some of these cultures to, like especially Japan, it'll take some time for the men to warm up to it. They are slowly. In Tokyo, it's different. Like if you go to Tokyo in like the big city, of course, there's more men than if you go to the countryside out here.
92% women.
Yeah. But it's still a big imbalance, right?
Yeah.
And most of the teachers are women and there's not many men. Like most of the time, I would say probably 80% of my classes, I'm the only man ever. And most of my classes.
They must love that though, because you take your shirt off and you teach.
Yeah. Sometimes I do. I try to teach with my shirt on, but it gets stuck to my body because I'm sweating so much.
Yeah, because he's a Canadian, so everything is hot for him all the time.
I'm a special Canadian though. Not every Canadian is like me.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it's nice for me. I like to have brothers in the class, you know, because like I'm a man. And ultimately, I think in the end, a man can only really help a man. And a woman can really only help a woman about the physical things, right? Because like women always ask me about their menstruation and yoga practice. And I'm like, you know, I have what people tell me, but I don't have any practical experience. And yoga is all about practical experience, right? So I really like to draw upon my own experience and my own practice. And it's nice to fill your head with information, but there's nothing more valuable than that living knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, this is related. Reminds me of a friend of mine, Corey. I'm pretty sure it's Corey Doubts, unless I screwed up my friends. An astrologer. He got in Cosmopolitan magazine. I'm so jealous.
Wow, good.
Yeah, he got in Cosmopolitan magazine to answer the question of why is astrology 90 to 95% the interest of women. Did you know that? I mean, probably you knew that too, right? It's mostly a women's thing.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting topic, and actually, it's just also women are more sensitive.
For sure.
And they spend more time thinking and thinking about themselves and introspecting than men who are more active.
Yeah, it's true.
So, and also when it comes to, if you think of yoga as a physical thing, men can do bench presses, men can do all this stuff much more easily than women do. So they really get into that muscle oriented gymnasium stuff. So women kind of feel like disadvantaged, but yoga has so much to do with flexibility and all that stuff. So women can really excel there. Yeah,
it's true.
So I think that's another reason why when you think of yoga as a physical thing, if you think of yoga as a physical thing, well then it's obvious why women and men are kind of like equal, or maybe women are even have an advantage there. Or if you think of it as a mental thing, actually it's also kind of easier for women because they're more naturally introspective.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the other thing too, is people perceive it as like a sport. It's like, oh, I'm not flexible,
I know,
so I shouldn't do it. But you know, actually if you actually get into the real proper hatha yoga, you need a lot of strength. Like you're getting into, well, not to mention the handstands and all the other crazy stuff that you do, but if you don't have good strength, it means your muscles won't even be able to support your flexibility properly. So some people come in so flexible, but they're not strong, very unstable. They're like ramen, they're noodles, you know, they're just like this. So you need to have a good balance of flexibility and strength. You know, we usually say the woman is more flexible, needs a bit more strength. The man is more strong, needs more flexibility. Yeah. You know, and
I've noticed the teachers tend to specialize like that too. Male teachers, I always see them doing like handstand poses and big muscles, and female teachers are more like their leg is over here. But I do both. That's why I love you. Yeah. You got both.
I do both. Yeah. Well, because I like the whole topic. I like all of the poses. I don't like the systems that stick to one way all the time because there's millions of variations. So it's like I see it as like a living mandala it's constantly like rotating, and it's like multifaceted in its layers. So you can really mix and match with the days, you know. Yeah. The weather changes every day, so why can't you practice?
Yeah. You know? Maybe it should.
Well, that's, I think, especially with astrology, like when you get into the Vedangas, like Jyotish, it's a mandatory study in the study of all of this stuff. And so you can actually, like my friend James, who, you know, James Foyle, he really goes into like how to make the physical hatha practice like line up with the astrology.
That's cool.
Yeah. So he tries to do all the directions in particular ways when the sun's like this, and
that's really cool.
Yeah. So he always helps me with that a little, telling me, because I don't go so deep into the Jyotish. Yeah. I rely on guys like you and like him to help fill in the blanks, because it's hard to study all of the things, you know.
Yeah, you can't be a jack of all trades. It's better to be a master of one.
It's better to be a master of one than a jack of all trades. But that's why we have each other. Yeah. You know?
And that's what I'm saying too about like the Chris Brennans versus the David Palmers and the Claire Naktis of astrology.
Yeah, it really requires that we rely on each other. Don't create divisions between each other. Our differences are what makes us strong.
Yeah, that's hard. Hard to do though.
It is hard, yeah.
All right, last topic. This is a good episode, so let's keep it good. All right, so the last topic. Somebody asked me to talk about superstitions, astrological superstitions, and somebody else asked me to talk about the rise of interest in magic and remedial measures. So it was actually a Western astrologer who asked us to talk about the rise of using magic in combination with astrology and remedials. And then somebody else said, Can you talk about how ridiculous it is that people are so superstitious about astrology? So what I want to do is I want to frame this as the battle between New Age magic, or Wicca, or whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever New Age PC modern term works, versus the old-fashioned superstition. And what I want to tell you guys is, guess what, folks? It's the same stuff.
It is, yeah.
Like everybody is gonna make fun of the silly Indian who lives in a village who has Mars in the 7th house, and because of that, she first has to marry an iron pot. before she can marry her real husband. I can't believe people actually do this. Baby, that is magic. The only reason why you call it superstition is because you're not getting into it.
Right.
And that's what is magic if you don't get into it. It's useless.
Right.
Because magic is how a symbol affects your mind in a way that you don't know with your intellect.
Right.
It's because it's a symbolic, lower than a verbal level. It's affecting your mind, your thoughts, and your perceptions without your intellect processing it. So if you don't, whether you're doing a new age thing of like lighting a candle and everybody's chanting some new age mantra that you made up just now and everybody's holding everybody's hand and it's so modern, whatever, whether you're doing that or whether you're doing Om Swaha Pundari Kaksha and you're marrying, tying a coconut and cracking it over somebody's head, doesn't matter which one you're doing, they're both magic and they're both going to fail if you don't put your heart into it and let the symbolism seep into your heart, and they're both going to work if you don't get into it in a superficial way. Right.
This connects to the, what do they call it? That medical theory, or it's actually like a proven thing, which is the placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
So they had groups, and if you take just sugar pills or you take the actual medicine, if you believe the medicine will work, it will work.
Right.
And so this heralds to, the power of our own mind.
Right.
And if we give ourselves to it, it will have a great effect on us.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what it is, a belief or a medicine or whatever. It's really, because I really believe the real power and the real technology, like this stuff is all nice, but the human body and brain is already so much more sophisticated than our computers.
Right.
This is a living computer that absorbs the environment, and but these computers require so many things, and drop some water on it, they're finished, right? So, and we still can't match the power of what we have, no matter what. Right. So if we get more and more into that natural science and our natural technology,
right,
and we just don't judge everybody's ways, just appreciate that there's differences and
see the similarity in the differences.
Right.
So what you're saying is this stuff is great.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's all good. It's all good. And, maybe you're a highly studied person and some of these things don't have so much merit, but it's okay. Just hold your tongue. If it's not effective, it will naturally peter out. It will naturally go away.
Well, no, it's also, I think the key there is like the way you were talking about how you deal with commodification of yoga. You might see somebody doing a ritual in a really superficial, stupid way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's an ancient, an old backwards person in an Indian village, or whether it's some really silly new age hippie.
Mm-hmm.
You might see it.
Mm-hmm.
Your job isn't to crush them.
Yeah.
Or tell them that this is bogus.
Right.
Your job is to say you're doing something really cool.
Yeah.
You just need adjust this and this and see how much more it's gonna
really
come alive for you.
Try this, yeah.
If you really know what you're talking about. If you don't really know what you're talking about, then just shut up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always the lesser form of knowledge is to destroy, and the higher form is to build, right?
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, and then another thing too that harkens back to the concept of ideals and practicality.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also on this point of magic versus therapy.
Mm.
They're both good.
Mm-hmm.
Like these days we've developed psychology, and there's a lot of therapeutics and stuff involved in diagnosis and all that stuff. That stuff is not discountable.
No.
As much as I am the dude who just loves ancient stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm the guy who's going to go and light a candle. Right? I'm into the magic stuff.
I like lighting
more
candles
than I'm
too.
going to go and go to a psychologist.
Right.
But for a lot of people, I think, if I see certain stuff going on in their chart, I want to say, go to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
If the type of person is the type of person that can benefit from chanting a mantra, doing a ritual, then I'll give them that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's the type of person where you can see their Jupiter is not very open to hocus pocus stuff, then you say, go to a therapist. Because different things work for different people.
Right. And we're all going to get something different out of whatever it is either.
Yeah.
The same way. So, yes, this struggle will continue, between the ancient and the modern and the new and the old.
Yeah.
And let's hope that, especially in these times, as things look like they're coming, things are getting more intense. The world's getting more close, but also we're also kind of getting divided in our minds. We have to definitely strive for more unification in this way, and don't be afraid to have healthy conversations with people, even a little bit of an argument. As long as you're not ill-intentioned, you should be able to find a more refined ground You know, we need each other's differences to find the right path, right?
You hear that, everybody?
Yeah, we all need that. Everywhere, our personal relationships all the way up to our everything, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this has been the Astro-Yogi, what do we call it?
Super-Gossip.
Talk Show.